Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Online Smicha. With the cold season, the winter season, getting closer to that season, and people are getting ready how to stay warm, it's interesting to review a tshuva from Reb Moshe Feinstein about a shaila in Hilchas Shabbos. And this tshuva is in Igros Moshe, Shailas tshuva is Igros Moshe, Eirachayim Chelik Gimel, Simin Nun. I'm going to highlight some of these nekudas. And the question which he was asked, may a person on Shabbos, it's cold on Shabbos, may he cover himself with a heated blanket? A heated blanket is plugged in, so it keeps warm, and he wants to cover himself. Is it a shaila? So I'm sure when you hear me saying this, you're thinking, of course, it's plugged in, it's electricity, I don't know what it is. So Moshe goes through all different possibilities of why it should be usher, and yet one by one he knocks it off and he says, I don't see it being a problem. So let's start with point number one. The fact that it's an electrical item, it's plugged in, and therefore it should be muktzah, says Rav Moshe, slow down. What type of level of muktzah is this? Because in muktzah, in Shimon Shin Ches, when the halachas are muktzah are categorized, there are many different categories of muktzah. Would this be like a blender, a plug-in toaster oven? Is this just because it has electricity, it's prohibited? Or this has a different klal to it, meaning there is a muktzah, a kli shemalachte le'isser, something which is made and you primarily use it for isser, then it's one level of muktzah. A kli shemalachte leheter, something, a regular vessel, a regular keli, utensil, which is made for things that primary use is for things you're allowed to do in Shabbos, is not a problem at all. Now, the fact that this blanket gets plugged in, it's not definitely a kli shemalachte leisser, because there are plenty of people who might use it without plugging it in. It's a blanket that you could use plugged in or not plugged in. So it's a kli shemalachte leisser uleheter. And a kli shemalachte leisser leheter, it's much easier to move it around. So muktzah is not really the biggest problem. Then he goes on to discuss, how about the fact that it is possibly refuah? You know, maybe you're not feeling well, and you're covering yourself with this blanket. It's an act of refuah, and refuah is prohibited in Shabbos. And refuah is prohibited in Shabbos for a whole different set of laws. It's the gzeira of way back then, how they made the refuah. They would grind the samamonim that they put in there, and that's a chash. Because of that, we wouldn't allow any refuah in Shabbos. Says Rav Moshe, again, the same answer. The fact that many healthy people who are not sick use this blanket just as comfort, it's not a problem. It's not necessarily a refuah. Says Rav Moshe, it's maris ha'ayin. A person looking and seeing you use this might mistake that you're doing a refuah. Says the Rav Moshe, the fact that so many people could use it for so many different reasons, the maris ha'ayin doesn't apply. However, the fact that it's plugged in and the temperature, there's a gauge, a knob that you put it on and off, that taka might be a concern, because you might put on the switch, take off the switch. So therefore, Moshe says, if you want to use this, it's very similar, but for a different reason. It's very similar to a pot on a fire. You have to make a heker to protect yourself from moving the knob. Same too, or in the pot is the coals, the fire. So too over here, it has to be some kind of heker by the knob. And two places, says Rav Moshe. The knob where you put on the on and off switch, and the plug in the wall to make sure that nobody pulls out the plug. And Rav Moshe goes a step further. And Rav Moshe says, so maybe somebody will think of another reason why this should be usher. You're covering yourself during the night. You're going to sleep. Who knows if you turn and from side to side during the night, and maybe by turning and schlepping the blanket along with you, you're going to pull it out, you're going to yank it out from the socket. And by doing that, you just stop the fire, stop the electricity. Says Rav Moshe, first of all, you don't know. You can't just make problems because maybe he's going to turn, and maybe when he turns, it's going to pull out. There's a bunch of maybes. For a bunch of maybes to prohibit this doesn't work. And second of all, even if he went to sleep with the thing on and he turned and it slept the wire out, that's something that's completely ain't miskaven, completely unintentional. And we find the rule that even unintentional things are prohibited when it has to happen. In Hilchos Shabbos is the rule of psik reisha, things that you don't want, you didn't intend to do, but based on the action that you're doing, it must take place, is also prohibited. Not in this case. In the case of the warm blanket, even though it's plugged in, says Rav Moshe, you don't even know if he's going to turn. If he's going to turn and schlep it out, it's completely unintentional. It doesn't even have to happen that I must turn and schlep it out. So for all these reasons of the checklist, Moshe basically is matir the concept of sleeping with a warm blanket.